Welcome to Kicker's Year in Review. We are live on the Kicker News YouTube channel, and we're going to go over some of the biggest stories of 2019. I'm your host, Nick Conway, joined by Thandi O'Grady, Patrick Newhook, and Mark Quilty. First, we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame and how it broke box office records to become the highest grossing movie of 2019. What'd you guys think of the movie?
I loved it.
I thought it was a good movie, yeah.
Definitely deserving of all the praise and the big box office numbers for sure. Beating out Avatar, which previously held the record, which is definitely impressive.
Yeah, I think it was a good wrap-up, too, to the whole series.
Yeah.
Long movie, though. Long movie.
Oh, yeah, but...
Worth it.
Yeah, worthy of being long, yeah.
It's going to be a long movie because it's wrapping up, like, the last 20 Marvel movies. It's like the end to the whole, well, not franchise, but to a series, at least.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
And what are your guys' thoughts on Martin Scorsese's comments, if you've heard them, about the Marvel franchise?
I think Martin Scorsese's open to his opinion. I don't think it's entirely fair to just disregard superhero movies like that, though, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of talent to do that. And to just say that they're like roller coasters or theme parks or whatever is, to me, a little backhanded and a little unfair.
Of course, Martin Scorsese said that the Marvel movies are like theme parks. Martin Scorsese, of course, a very famous director. His opinion holds a lot of weight in Hollywood, but the money of the Marvel movies talks more than that. So we're going to see how that turns out in the new year. Next, Toronto's own Raptors won the 2019 NBA Championships, earning their first ring in franchise history. What does this mean for basketball in the city?
I think it was well-deserving for Toronto. It's been like a long time coming. And just to happen, for that to happen like in 2019, I think it was big, not just for Toronto, but
if you're a good writer, if you're curious about the world around you, then we might have something for you.
Does this win, is it going to translate into more gains? Are we going to see maybe this era in the franchise become a dynasty? Right now, it's not looking like that's going to be the case, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how this season plays out in the end.
Toronto, of course, lost their top player, Kawhi Leonard, in free agency to the Los Angeles Clippers. He was a massive reason of Toronto winning, of course, making that huge game-winning shot against the Philadelphia 76ers.
yeah.
A lot of people say he was the only reason that they won, even though they have experienced players like Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, who they traded for. Do you think that the Raptors can hold on to the success?
I personally think they can, but I also think that losing him was a big loss to the whole team. And, it's possible, but they're going to have to really step up their game.
The Raptors, of course, not doing as well this season, but still in a playoff hunt. Moving on to sports in the province, St. John's will keep both the Edge and the Growlers, the city's basketball and hockey teams respectively. What does this mean for sports in Newfoundland?
It's definitely a good thing that they're holding on to the teams now. It's going to bring a lot of revenue for sure into the city through people in attendance. It's a good thing overall, I think, just to have the teams here as representatives for the province. Seems like it's a good choice to me.
It's important for like downtown to sort of have those types of sporting events because
it's an attraction.
Exactly, and also they bring also a lot of benefits to like local businesses downtown as well. So overall, I think it's a good thing that we're going to have the St. John's Growlers and St. John's Edge for a bit longer.
Of course, the Growlers signed a 10-year extension with the city of St. John's. Moving on to politics, this summer, U.S. President Donald Trump met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the Korean Demilitarized Zone, the first time a U.S. president has met with a North Korean leader within the borders of North Korea. Now, guys, this was a huge moment for not only politics in America, but all around the world. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Historic moment. I think that's the best way to sum this up. This is something that we're going to be talking about in history books like 20 years down the road from now. It's a good thing, and hopefully it can be developed into maybe more peace talks in the future. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think this is Donald Trump, his presidency, his mandate. It's been an uphill climb for sure. And I think that this was definitely one of the moments where it's definitely one of the highlights of his presidency in terms of things that he's accomplished. Being able to make those peace talks, have North Korea at the table is really important. And the photograph of him shaking hands with Kim Jong-un at the DMZ, at the border, pretty iconic, pretty incredible. So
it was a really iconic moment for politics all around the world. Staying in Asia, this year Hong Kong erupted into protests due to concerns over a proposed extradition law that could make Hong Kongers vulnerable to political imprisonment. Now, most of these protesters were students, university, college, high school students in Hong Kong, millions and millions of citizens. This was a major, major news story in Asia. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Well, Hong Kong, it's kind of an awkward city because, for a long time, the UK owned it as a colony, and it was
under British rule.
It was under British rule for a long time, and that only ended not too long ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago or something, like not that long ago, and it's a capitalist city. It has a capitalist market, but it's in China, which is a communist government, and it's a lot of tension there. And it's very difficult for Hong Kong to really do a lot because China. I have a friend from Hong Kong, and he said they kind of just try to mess with it whenever they can. So yeah, and the protests. It's hopefully they don't lead to anything more violent, but it's hard to say.
Well, we saw the Chinese police force use more and more violence towards these protesters. Hopefully, in 2020, things will be resolved. In 2019, Canadians went to the polls in a tightly contested federal race, and embattled Trudeau was able to hold on to his government, but the Liberal caucus was reduced to a minority. How do we feel about the entire election? Because this was the major story in Canada this year. All over the news, all over everywhere. Pat, what do you have to think?
I was following the Canadian election for a long time, probably about a year before it started. Honestly, my expectations for the results were met. I was expecting a Liberal minority government, and that was met. Justin Trudeau, there's a bit of alienation from him in the West, and that's where he lost a lot of support. But there's also a lot of support from him in places like Ontario and in the Atlantic provinces where we are now. And that stayed true. So, yeah, all my expectations and predictions were close to being right.
Well, one thing that not a lot of people predicted was the rise of the Bloc Québécois. Mark, do you have anything to say on this?
I find it extremely surprising that we're seeing this kind of regional separation again in Canada. It seemed like that was going to be relegated to the past. We weren't going to see huge divides between election results in Quebec and the West and Ontario. But we're seeing this come up again, which really goes to show that if this election was a referendum on Trudeau, he lost, hands down.
Well, speaking of Trudeau, he came under fire for photos that were leaked online to major news organizations that appeared to show him in blackface. There were photos, videos. I mean, this was a major, major scandal. What do you guys have to think about this?
I think it wasn't a coincidence that it came out at this time in his career, like political career, because he could have easily come up with this when he first started and laid it out on the table. But I feel like this also had a lot to do with, the results of the election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I feel like this was released during the time it was released as a way to kind of hurt Trudeau during the federal election. And to smear his image. Yeah. And it's also important to note that, even though there's, a couple videos out and a couple photos released, there's a possibility there's more.
Exactly. We've only seen the stuff that's been released. What hasn't? What is being held in private right now? What has no one else seen?
Yeah. I think the photographs just go to show that even though Trudeau presented himself as kind of a socially liberal type, that the type of insulation that wealth and race give you in Canada, it makes you insensitive to certain things, certain situations, certain cultural notions. It's definitely pretty telling about the state of the country, race relations in Canada. Yeah.
Well, moving on to provincial politics, much closer to home, Labrador MHA Perry Trimper was recorded making disparaging comments about the Indigenous people, evoking the painful past of prejudice against Indigenous people in the province. Now, we've all heard the leaked phone call from Perry Trimper. What do you guys have to say about this?
I think it shows how, not just the province, but Canada still has a long way to go in terms of, race relations, especially with Indigenous people and how they've been mistreated for such a long time. And I just hope in the future we make amends and move in the right direction.
So yeah, I agree. It shows that there needs to be a lot more discussion and further thought about
10 minutes in or 10 minutes?
relations that we have with the Indigenous people in this country.
Okay.
And I think another important thing is that Jerry Byrne was having a conversation with another person, and that other person, their name was never released. And I don't know, should that name be released, because they were agreeing with what Perry Trimper, said Jerry Byrne, Perry Trimper was saying.
Yeah.
So should they face the same consequences?
Definitely some questions to be asked there about that whole situation, for sure.
Well, students and other activists came out across the globe to protest government inaction on the issue of climate change this year, specifically one Greta Thunberg. Now, this was a global epidemic. People in all walks of life marching out of school to protest climate change. It seems like the youth have had enough. Is this a step in the right direction?
I think for once, at least for me, this is the first time we're seeing young people actually have a voice and make changes and take a stance on something they feel is important, because I feel like a lot of times young people's voices are often not listened to or dimmed and not they're not put a light on. So I think this is a good sign that things are actually changing and that young people actually have something to say about what's going on in the world.
They're no longer silenced. They're able to say their voice. They're able to come together in the masses. And climate change is a real and major issue, and they're trying to make it known to the higher powers.
I feel like this year was definitely the year that the public woke up on this issue, that it became a real hot-button political topic, and I feel like it's going to have a lot of weight going forward in elections in the coming years, both in Canada and around the world. So,
well, moving on, coming just before the new year, the United States House of Representatives voted to impeach President Donald Trump. This is for allegedly withholding foreign aid to the Ukrainian government in exchange for dirt on political rival Joe Biden. Now, I know, Pat, you've had a lot to say about this.
I was honestly very surprised when he actually got impeached, because I didn't think it was actually going to happen, and it happened very close to the end of 2019, as we all know. And I think it's really questioning now what's going to happen next. Will he be removed from office? Will the Senate vote to do that, or will it just fall dead in the water? One thing is for clear, though, Donald Trump is in an exclusive club right now that nobody wants to be in.
Only the third president to ever be impeached in U.S. history.
It's not a popular group to be a part of.
Well, to end off, we're going to play some footage showcasing the program to give viewers a look at what kind of reporting they can expect from Kicker in 2020. From all of us here at the table, thanks for watching.
We've got the latest, most up-to-date equipment in the business, and we also work with industry experts to get you the on-the-job training that you need.
Our partners in industry are very helpful to us in terms of giving work terms to our students, and they're always helpful in terms of giving feedback. Every 5 years we have a major industry review or major program review, and industry takes part in that.
Last spring, each of us got a chance to get out and work in our chosen field. Me and my classmate Victoria were lucky enough to spend our time at the Telegram.
My name is Victoria Plowman. I am 20 years old and I'm from Gander, Newfoundland. I've worked with CBC in Gander and now I'm here at the Telegram, obviously. So you get a lot of really good experience from the program and a lot of work opportunities, obviously.
One thing that I learned from school that really came in handy here was trying to convince someone who wants to stay anonymous in a story to go on the record. I know Frank taught us a lot about that.
Definitely. I know that's definitely happened here a few times for me too. Obviously there's lots of opportunities for us as journalism students. Like, we're not the only ones to get work terms here in the city, and obviously I was with CBC and Gander too before here, so it's really great.
Jessie Dobbins spent her work term with Rogers Television here in St. John's. She gives us a sneak peek into a documentary that she worked on, which will air later this year.
If you stood in this spot in the early 1800s, you would have been smack in the middle of an area known as Tanrahan's Town.
It feels like I've been here a lot longer than just 4 weeks. Like, I honestly feel like I know almost everyone here, like, that I work with, basically. And I feel like I've learned a lot more skills and built upon skills that I already had. Like, I feel like I know, like, I'm more comfortable with editing video than I was. And with the Dale Jarvis interview, I was in front of the camera, and when I went out to do the interview, I didn't think I was trying to work around not being in the shot. And basically Linda said that the idea was for me to be in the shot. So I was really uncomfortable and scared about being in front of the camera. But looking over what I did and everything, and actually during the interview, it's kind of, I just ignored the cameras after a while. And the longer the interview went on, the more comfortable I got. I felt really prepared going in here. The only reason that I was nervous on the first day, because I didn't want to get lost on my way in. I didn't want to do anything to embarrass myself on the first day. And I'm kind of disappointed that this is my last day, because I did enjoy going places, and like when we did the community bios, I enjoyed driving around and going to different like places like Paradise and Portugal Cove and Bell Island, and I even learned things from doing the voiceover that I didn't even know was part of the history. So I kind of feel like I learned things that didn't have to do with the technical part of journalism or the skills that I was trying to build. I just learned every day.
I joined the team here at the college after 32 years working at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation as a producer, a reporter, and an on-air host in television news. Let me tell you about my colleagues. That's Jeff Ducharme. He started out in the journalism business as a press photographer in Ottawa, covering The Hill. But he's also branched out into one of the most interesting fields of journalism. The College of the North Atlantic is only one of 4 schools in North America that offers a program in drone journalism.
Back in 2012, I started seeing things, particularly in the U.S., at the College of Lincoln, Nebraska, where they were doing drone journalism. They actually had a lab built where they're actually building drones for journalism. I started doing research in it, and I realized that it was going to be a game changer. It was going to completely change the face of journalism, and it was going to level the playing field. And I thought, because we're small markets out here and that sort of thing, it'd be a great addition to the program if we started looking at drones and how they can change stories. They can take a story from okay and make it epic just through a few images. Mainly, they're used as a platform for a camera. And that's all a drone is it's a platform. It's nothing more than a platform. So, for instance, you look at a washout, a road washout, and you look from the ground level and you say, well, that doesn't look too bad. But when you fly 50 feet or 100 feet above that washout, you show the expanse of that washout, now all of a sudden the story becomes that much more epic, to people, and they go, wow, okay, it's that bad. Illegal dumping. You walk through the woods and you find a sink that somebody's dumped in the woods. It doesn't look that bad. But when you fly over the trees and you can actually look down in that area and you can see that, say, a whole shore of a lake is covered in debris, then it really changes the story, and it just takes it to another level and gives the viewer a better understanding about it. And you can do that with a helicopter, but a helicopter costs $1,000 an hour. A drone, you can buy a drone for $1,000 bucks. So it just levels the playing field for all the media out there. Beyond that, you can do environmental testing with them. You can put sensors on them. You can send them out in the lakes to do water samples. You can do air samples with them. You can use LiDAR to look into things. We were the first post-secondary institution in Canada to start drone journalism. We were I believe the third in North America. We're well positioned for it. We're way ahead of everybody else because we've been working on this since 2000, since late 2012. So, we're just slowly, building up our technology, buying the equipment, and incorporating it into the program. So, this is something I'm seeing schools, particularly in the U.S., but in Canada too, adding this to their journalism programs. Every year I'll see 3 or 4 more post-secondary institutions add it to their journalism program. Well, we're years ahead of them.
And that's Frank Carroll. His specialty is digital journalism.
Well, I've been teaching journalism here at the College of North Atlantic for 18 years. Before that, I was a print reporter for 10 years at Robinson Blackmore, the old Robinson Blackmore chain throughout Newfoundland, Labrador. I also worked at the Western Star in Corner Brook and the Times and Transcript in Moncton. The web has revolutionized everything. The first thing it did was to undermine the old commercial model of journalism. And therefore, we're in an era now of constant experimentation as the industry tries to figure out how to attract eyeballs to screens and how to make a living out of journalism and how to support good journalism. This is our website, and it is mobile compatible. As you can see, the students produce weekly and sometimes daily deadlines, and people can visit our site to check out. It's a good check out the site. It's a good showcase for our students' work. So we have one of our most popular stories of the year was about a graduate of this college, a fashion designer who graduated from this campus, Prince Philip Drive. Well, we place a lot of emphasis on digital media. We train the students how to use social media for journalistic purposes. They're already familiar with it for social purposes, for fun, for keeping in touch. But there's a very deliberate, systematic way of using these for journalistic purposes, and we place a lot of emphasis on that.
Tyler, this is your story, and so who did you speak with for the story?
I spoke with Dwight Lethbridge, the mayor of Kyrate, and I spoke with Sheila O'Leary, deputy mayor of St. John's, and I had some interesting conversations with them. And,
we'll teach you the skills you need across all 3 platforms, including radio, television, and the internet. It's never been a better time to be a journalist. If you like telling stories, if you want to make change in your society, then journalism could just be the profession for you. And we're the people to teach you that. We're College of the North Atlantic.
You can check us out at www.kicker.cna-nl.com, and we'll be here in the K109 studios at the same time next week. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.